Hare Krishna. So we're continuing with chapter 12 of Gopāla Campū, herding the cows. The next day, the talks continued. Snigdha Kanta spoke. Though Krishna and Balarama's age was reckoned as 3 years, since time passed quickly according to Bhagavatam 10:8:26, their Kaumara period was extended an extra year. At the request of the calves and boys, the Kaumara age remained for another year till the 4th year, since it passed in a moment because of Krishna's and the boys' lack of enjoyment during that year. At the request of Krishna, Balaram also responded in the same way. Then the Pauganda manifest for 2 years, 4th and 5th year. Because of the quick appearance of Kaishora period after the joy of living together with friends. We will speak of this after the killing of Dhenuka. Thus, mention of time passing quickly is appropriate in the Bhagavatam. Tavad evatma bhur atma manena trutyaneha sa purovad abdham kridhantam dadrishesa kalam harim. When Lord Brahma returned after a moment of time had passed, according to his own measurement, he saw that although by human measurement, a complete year had passed, Lord Krishna, after all that time, was engaged just as before in playing with the boys and calves who were his expansions, SB 10, 13, 40. Tatascha Pauganda Vaya Shritau Praje Babhuvatu Stau Pashupala Sammatau Gasharayanto Sakhibi Samam Pade Vrindavanam Punyam Ativa Chakratu. When Lord Rama and Lord Krishna attained the age of Pauganda 6 while living in Vrindavana, the cowherd men allowed them to take up the task of tending the cows. Engaging thus in the company of their friends, the two boys rendered the land of Vrindavana most auspicious by imprinting upon it the marks of their lotus feet. SB 10, 15, 1. We will return to the topic. When Krishna and Balarama, attracting the minds of all, played in this way, the 5th year, the last year of Kaumara, finally arrived. While all people received that in that year, Krishna remained as in the previous year and the year previous to that, he suddenly took on the beauty of Pauganda age and left the Kaumara age. Krishna and Balarama reached the Pauganda age and their intelligence increased. Krishna's blackness and Balarama's whiteness defeated their luster in the Kaumara period. Their chests increased in size and their eyes and other limbs became longer. Their hair and clothing became more elaborate. They became skillful at learning new types of play. Affection increased. This makes me desire to see them. One day, Yashoda came into the assembly in the morning. The wife of Abhinanda inquired from her, "O mother of Krishna, where did your son Krishna go without delay early in the morning?" Yashoda smiled and spoke, "Oh, up till now I have completed all the tasks such as rubbing his body with oil, bathing him and dressing him. Now, however, being somewhat embarrassed in front of me, he has become affectionate to his servants and after completing those tasks comes to me, Nanda and other elders by offering deep respects. Until he killed Aga, I would think of his return in the evening, and when he returned with the calves, I would circle water over him 3 times and drink it according to local tradition. But now, though I am more careful and forbid him from many things, is beyond my control. The same goes for Rohini's son." The women, hearing this new description, looked at her face and smiled. She again spoke, "Understanding that this is the quality of a person beyond infancy, I am happy, but he causes me great suffering." Everyone said with concern, "Why is that?" She said, "He now desires to herd the cows while not paying attention." The women said, "You should not worry about this. This is the nature of the children born of the cowards. One cannot see absence of herding cows anywhere. This is the remarkable nature of coward boys and of Krishna also." The assembly of Nanda also discussed the nature of Krishna. The assembly of Nanda also discussed the nature of Krishna. Nanda, giving joy to the assembly, spoke to Sananda and Nandana with a gentle smile. "Oh, long-lived brothers, I can see that Krishna, who acts like a newborn child, does not behave in the same way to me as he does to you. He looks contracted eyes and speaks to you with sweet words. Sananda said, "That's proper, since you are most worthy of respect. You are serious about giving instructions to him, but we cannot think of giving him orders, though he is of Kaumara age. See, though very young, Krishna offers respects to his mother and then to you as his father. Then he offers respects to each friend every day at dawn." When Upananda, Abhinanda, and others voice the same opinion, one after another, and then remain silent in order to hear Nanda. Nanda, listening to the descriptions from other persons while gently smiling to reveal his bliss, spoke to Sananda and Nandana. "You two, with great intent, followed Krishna and Balarama, endowed with pleasing wide eyes from the beginning of the day, begging them to follow instructions. But after 3 days searching for them, you saw the brothers far away. What else can be said?" Nandana said, "What can be said about their actions now? For a long time, the two boys have had increased their desire. We should not tell you to restrict the boys." Nanda said, "Then what should be done?" Sananda said with a smile, "I told them that they should herd the cows." Upananda said, "What did they do? What did they say?" Sananda said they had just passed 1 year of age. It's improper for them to herd the cows like the elders. Hearing them speak in this way and looking at their faces, Nanda remained silent and was astonished. Everyone began speaking. Though they act like newborn children, they show intelligence and strength beyond their years. This astonishes us. But it's not so astonishing because it has been produced by your great austerities. They have had no assistance in killing demons. This can only be auspicious. One day, while alone, Nanda made a proposal to his wife. The two discussed out of love for their son. "Let us wait for the best time." Several days later, in the shining assembly, when they saw the surprising features of Nanda, the elder cowards, glancing at each other, smiled. When Nanda asked with a smile why they were laughing, they said, "It seems that Krishna has forgotten us and you also." Nanda said, "Please speak the truth." Everyone said, "Though this has happened long before, you have noticed it while herding the cows. The cows follow no other person except him. Today he's in front and dispatched the cows with difficulty." Nanda said, "Why has this happened suddenly?" They all said, "When your son shows affection for anything, it behaves in this way." Nanda, celebration of cow herding. They all said, "When there is no alternative, one must act. What you fear will not be insignificant, even if they herd only the calves. But your austerities will torture the enemies. Therefore, you should give permission. By that permission, you will destroy all inauspiciousness." Immediately on hearing this, Nanda gave consent in the assembly. Upananda and others, on gaining consent, became happy and inquired from the famous astrologers. The astrologers advised that the two boys should begin herding the cows on the 8th lunar day of the waxing moon in Kartika month during Shravana constellation on Wednesday. On hearing the auspicious moment chosen, the wise derived pleasure. Nanda and others then gave the responsibility of herding the cows to Krishna after he had surpassed the happiness of herding the calves by holding a huge festival in Raja lasting 3 days with the sound of drums. If each speaker's mouth became 10,000 and their lifespan lasted 1,000 years, they could describe only 1 day of Krishna herding the cows. The description of their new job: wearing new covered dress and protective herbs, receiving blessings from Brahmanas, being worshipped with lamps on an auspicious day, Krishna departed with the cows along with Balarama after hearing sweet songs and seeing dances to the sounds of continuous music. The arrangements for going to the forest were as follows: putting the priest in front with songs, music, and auspicious verses, bringing the cows near and worshipping them by offering foot wash and arghya, feeding them sweet chickpeas, respecting them with obeisances and circumambulation, and then offering the same respects to the priest. Krishna, with his elder brother, remained standing in front of Nanda, who had his hands folded. Nanda offered him a jewel stick and Yashoda put tilaka on his forehead. O Balarama, remain in front of your friend Krishna. O Subala, stay behind him. O Dama and Sudama, you two should remain at his sides. All others remain around him. Instructing all the children and assigning them their jobs, she showered them with her tears. Women who were given great wealth by Rohini, women who were given great wealth by Rohini met with the wife of Upananda, while the earth and heavens performed various auspicious acts. Offering respects to his mother and father, as well as others in the midst of great clamor and festivities, Krishna was ready, saying, Jihi, Jihi. He sent off the cows, but they remained in front of him and did not go. Seeing that this was unsuitable, he sent the elders into their houses and departed in front of the cows. When Krishna slowly walked in order to see the calves in front, the cows began to follow. Knowing that the elders wanted to follow, Krishna and Balarama discouraged them from doing so. Freeing themselves from the iron chain of the elders' glances, they laughed loudly and sported with their frolicking friends who were effulgent with their new occupation as cowards. Stopping the cows so that they could graze, fulfilling their desires, they walked towards Govardhana. Stopping the cows so that they could graze, fulfilling their desires, they walked towards Govardhana. They gathered and separated the cows by making special sounds and never used the stick to beat them. There the boys became absorbed in decorating themselves, rejoicing and playing with Krishna and Balarama to produce a great festival. Seeing this, the Devatas described the scene. Each cow was like Krishna's life fair situated externally. When the cows were satisfied, Krishna was satisfied, and when they were hungry, he experienced hunger. He would bring them close to his chest, smell them with the happiness, embrace them, search for them intensely, bring them together, feed them and protect them. This made him appear more splendid. Krishna held the cows as dear as his life, and they became vacant-hearted without him. Motionless like pictures, like trees standing all around. When they came to Krishna, they experienced bliss on smelling, seeing, hearing, tasting, and touching him. What is remarkable is that they were able to experience him externally using their senses. Krishna would call his friends and they would call him, they would speak to him, embrace him, smell him, joke with him, touch his shoulders and pull him. Let that be. But listen, astonishing. One should understand that Krishna and his friends never experienced difference from each other. Sometimes the friends said Krishna and Balarama, and sometimes they said Balarama and Krishna. This was acceptable because they are both like Paramatma. Blissful because of the sweetness of their pure fragrance, non-moving and moving entities situated far away in Vrindavana began to serve Krishna and Balarama with devotion. The two brothers were the life of Vrindavana, giving joy to all entities, including Devatas, by their extraordinary sight and touch. In attaining the highest happiness, they were most skillful in reaping results of pious acts. In that place, the flute, giving happiness to all, made itself and all other entities successful. A forest is not a forest without auspiciousness of playing, and there is no playing without auspicious songs. There are no songs without the sound of the flute. A flute which does not touch Krishna's mouth is not a flute. May that sweet music of the flute be heard on that day. Sounds with his flute, Krishna, surrounded by singing boys of his own nature, produced various types of sweetness with Balarama. With a gentle smile, With a gentle smile, Krishna then entered the deer forest, which was like a close friend's heart, laden with taste beneficial for the cows. Acting as a most affectionate friend, surrounded by sweet friends, Krishna embraced Balarama around his waist, using his hands, which were like buds caressed by fragrant wind from lotuses growing in the forest. He became more excited to play by imitating the sweet sounds of the animals, bees, and birds. For special fun, with reverence and joking, looking around while smiling and observing with astonishment, he began describing the forest to Balarama. For special fun, with reverence and joking, looking around while smiling and observing with astonishment, he began describing the forest to Balarama. Truly, you are the Lord of the universe, for the trees are offering you fruits and flowers and are offering respects to your feet. Look, all the trees feet with the tips of their branches laden with hundreds of fruit and flowers. Oh Lord, you are now present in this forest. We cannot see you since we are covered with ignorance. We trees take shelter of your feet, praying to be born as persons with eyes. Our friends say, when you come to the forest, the bees follow Balarama, beneficial to the heart, and sing his glories. I also conclude this. Are you not the Supreme Lord? And are not these bees the best of sages? The joyful peacocks dance attractively, and the deer gaze upon you with affectionate eyes. The cuckoos produce sweet, soft sounds. Among the inhabitants of the forest, these animals are fortunate because the dancing peacocks and cuckoos who know how to recite excellently are welcoming you as their guest. The earth's mountains, rivers, and grass are fortunate to receive the touch of your feet. Various creepers are fortunate in the colorful forest because of the marks made by your fingernails. The birds and bees of fortunate because of your glance. In this forest reside the Sharika creepers, which are fortunate because they shine with effulgence in their hearts. Even Lakshmi desires such a heart. You world from a Kshatriya line on your father's side. According to Dharma, you became the son of a coward leader, my father. You will marry a gopi. This creeper named Gopi is thus attracted to you. Relishing the nectar of his words, Balarama smiled and said, having such a wealth of qualities, who else but you may be considered to be the master? In this way, Krishna increased the joy of his friends with diversions while laughing with them, making them see the beauty of the forest of Vrindavana. He approached the bank of Manasa Ganga and became exceedingly joyous. I will describe now how Krishna played every day. He sported with Balarama everywhere, eager to hear the qualities of the songs of his friends. He began to imitate the songs of the bees and cuckoos. He began to gossip like the parrots and swans. He imitated the sounds of the chakravakas, chakoras, and cranes, as if arguing in debate while laughing. He made the sounds of terrifying animals such as tiger to frighten the young children. Daily, he would animals, birds, and mountains. If a friend wandered from the path, he would pull him back with his hand while laughing affectionately. He would bring back the cows wandering far off by calling their names and the names of the cowards. In calling the cows, the peacocks would also come, since his voice sounded like the deep rumbling of clouds. Sometimes Balarama would hold Krishna's hand, and sometimes Krishna would hold Balarama's hand. Sometimes he would talk on subjects beneficial for the boys and laugh. Sometimes with his friends, he would make Balarama take rest and would ask to massage his feet. Sometimes Sometimes he would sleep using a very soft bed, and sometimes would sleep with his head on the thigh of a friend. When fatigued from playing, he would desire to sleep and would be fanned by the purest of boys. Among the boys, some would massage his feet, having only that desire. He would sleep to melodies arising. He would sleep to melodies arising from sweet songs sung by affectionate friends. When we remember, we cannot tolerate anything else in our minds. We are greedy for him just as Shukadeva and others are greedy for him. When all these pastimes mix together attractively, after tying up sweets brought from home as previously, they would herd and protect the cows. Knowing it was time to return, Krishna, along with Balaram and other boys of his own age, would bring the cows back to Vraja while keeping the calves separate. They separated the cows as follows: those in heat, those impregnated, those about to bear calves, those newly giving birth, those having given birth long ago, those having given birth once, those having given birth many times, and those giving birth each year, as well as the best cows, barren cows, and the brown cows with names like Ganga and Kalindi. They also separated the various types of bulls, such as those suitable as oxen, young bulls, those with humps, those with huge humps, young bullocks, huge bulls, aged bulls, bulls with yokes, bulls for carrying loads, bulls for pulling. For pulling carts, and bulls for plowing the fields. Those with rings in their noses were as previously. In a most astonishing way, the inhabitants of Raja took auspicious items in their hands and, putting the leader in front, approached Krishna and performed Aratrika. Respecting Krishna, who was surrounded by cowards and Balarama, they brought him to their houses. Joyous mothers pampered him and pleased him. Respecting Krishna, who was surrounded by cows and Balarama, they brought him to their house. Joyous mothers pampered him and pleased him. Resting a short time, he went out to milk the cows. Servants brought attractive milk pails to the stables. On the order of Nanda, uh, servants brought attractive milk pails to the stables. On the order of Nanda, who was seated near the guest cowards, he got permission to release. Resting a short time, he went out to milk the cows. Servants brought attractive milk pails to the stables. On the order of Nanda, who was seated near the guest cowards. Yes, yeah, God. On the order of Nanda, who was seated near the great cowards, he got permission to release the calves, sat among the cows, and then began milking the cows, which was attractive to all minds and worthy of auspicious prayers. Coming out of the house, when he left the house, he carried a golden rod in his hand. His turban was decorated with jewel rope. His turban was decorated with jewel rope for cows. With Balarama, he surpassed the gate of the king of elephants. with Balarama, he surpassed the gate of the king of elephants, milking. When black-bodied Krishna and white-bodied Balarama began milking the cows, their hair shone along with the silk milking ropes, which were embedded with pearls and which sparkled brightly. The lower parts of the bodies were surrounded simply by the lower parts of the bodies were bound tightly with attractive cloth. They held gold and piles. Milking. When black-bodied Krishna and white-bodied Balarama began milking the cows, their hair shone along with the silk milking ropes, which were embedded with pearls and which sparkled brightly. The lower parts of their bodies were bound tightly with attractive cloth. They held golden pails among their dancing, firm knees. They held golden pails between their long, firm knees. Though they did not excessively milk the cows' udders, they obtained abundant milk. They engaged other when they folding their hands, the two boys stood there. Then when they were fully satisfied with seeing the skillful from far off, on being called, they sat on the left and right sides of Nanda. Because he desired to see Krishna and Balarama, Nanda's eyes boldly moved to the left and right sides. Nanda's eyes, whose only purpose was to see Krishna and Balarama at the same time, began to shed tears. Seeing Krishna with his left eye and Balarama with his right eye, he began shedding tears. He understood that his mind has been divided into two using the pretext of the tears, saying, "Come on, come, come on, come." Nanda, along with the regular cowards, peacefully went into the house, while Krishna and Balarama cast effulgence in all directions. Coming into the house, he satisfied all by giving them sweets. Satisfying all the people, Krishna and Balarama went to their rooms and lay down on pleasant beds. Their mothers caressed them, servants served them, and they fell asleep with contentment. Folding his hands, Snigdakanta, finishing the story, spoke. You have given birth to a son who makes Shukadeva becomes immediately unconscious when he glorifies him. When Sridhama and others heard this detailed, astonishing account and the story was finished, Nanda lost consciousness. The people, two reciters, stood with folded hands. After a long time, as on previous day, Nanda affectionately presented the two reciters with gifts and sent them to their quarters. All then returned to their homes. Chapter 13, defeating Kalia, the forest fire. As on previous day, when the assembly met early in the morning, Madhukanta was eager to speak, but he began to reflect internally. Shukadeva has described the killing of Dhenuka directly after the description of Krishna starting to herd the cows, because it also deals with the same subject of herding. of the same subject of herding the cows. This is actually said to have taken place at the end of Krishna's Pauganda age, since on that day a portion of Kaishara was manifesting when he entered his house. Therefore, this event took place after subduing Kaliya, though Shukadeva describes it killing. Therefore, this event took place after subduing Kaliya, though Shukadeva describes it before Kaliya's killing. This is actually said to have taken place at the end of Krishna's Pauganda age, since on that day a portion of Kaishara was manifesting when he entered his house. Therefore, this event took place after subduing Kaliya, though Shukadeva describes it before Kaliya's killing. This is made clear in Harivamsha 2.13.1. After describing Kaliya in the text, the killing of Dhenuka is described. Even by logic, this sequence becomes evident. Padma Purana clearly describes that Krishna began. Even by logic, this sequence becomes evident. Padma Purana clearly describes that Krishna began herding cows on the 8th waxing lunar day of Kartika month, October. Tala fruits become ripe in Bhadra month, September. Therefore, Dhenuka was killed during Bhadra month when he was guarding the Tala fruit. Therefore, I should describe Kaliya's defeat before describing the killing of Dhenuka. He began speaking aloud. Those who are famous as poets are not really poets. They describe matters of happiness as if they were events of great distress. Remaining silent, he then spoke again. He is the best among poets who, conquering all unfavorable topics before him, whether involving happiness or bravery, attains excellence in an unprecedented way, and who, singing of this continually in his heart, is not fully satisfied. Though the describing of the defeat of Kaliya is intolerable, all the events will bring happiness to people in the future. With that in mind, I will now describe it. Please listen. Requesting in this way, he began speaking while trembling. Since the cows were wandering everywhere, Balarama gave permission to Krishna to go to the lake of Kaliya, but not to go into its waters. Since it was also according to instructions given by Yashoda. His constant desire to see this place had not decreased for a long time, because his great curiosity and his great unimpaired strength, which showed intolerance of the influence of demons. One day, the birth constellation Shravana of Balarama arrived like a guest coming to the assembly of Vraja. Balarama was kept in the house in order that he takes an auspicious, joyful bath. Krishna, thinking of nourishing the pregnant cows, went out with his friends but without Balarama and came to a small forest. When lunchtime arrived, he took the opportunity to cheat others. Quickly, like an ocean of black nectar, he went towards Kaliya's lake in the black Yamuna, filled with poison which would kill others. The chief coward boys went in front of the cows. Seeing an area of grass which the cows had never eaten, out of curiosity, the boys delayed themselves for a short time. The cows, out of great thirst in the summer heat, began drinking the water mixed with the snake's poison. As soon as they drank the water, they fell unconscious. The boys in front, seeing this, began to lament. Desiring to give up the bodies, they also drank the water and fell unconscious. This was the working of Yoga Mayas alone, which makes the impossible destruction of demons possible. Immediately, Krishna came and, seeing everyone unconscious, changed his complexion and began lamenting. The cows, like the inhabitants of Raja, are equivalent to Devatas. The boys are equivalent to my life. They have all fallen into danger. What should I do? I'm their only helper. What shall I say to their mothers and fathers and all people? What misfortune my impulsive nature gives. With his heart melting, Krishna glanced at all the boys and cows. His lips became moist and his eyes filled with tears of great regret. The streams of tears falling on earth like drops of nectar revived the boys. Revived the boys. But those who were not immediately in front of him did not regain consciousness immediately, since he wanted to see each person personally. When they revived, they did not immediately think and move about. They realized that Krishna, moving here and there, had protected them from fainting from the poison of Aghan. Again, they understood that he was their source of consciousness. And with disheveled clothing and sitting upright, he gathered them together and embraced each one. It is said that he has a natural quality which surpasses logic. Thinking of that quality, he immediately manifests many forms at once. Meeting the boys, their eyes filled with tears, their bodies became motionless, and they lost consciousness. What is happiness? What is suffering? They remain without moving. They could not give each other up for a long time, even for a moment. Meeting the cows. Moving, the cows assembled and licked Krishna for a long time. They were eager to be with him, and their necks became splendid when he embraced them with his two arms. The boys then gave up embracing the cows' necks and remained standing there with eyes unsatisfied on drinking with the brilliant nectar of Krishna's face. In that condition, there arose in Krishna's intense emotion. There arose in Krishna intense emotion. Previously, Krishna, endowed with beauty, had been eager to kill the snake living in the water, who gave sorrow to the moving and non-moving beings on the shores of the river. But he remained silent out of shyness. But he remained silent out of shyness in front of the snake's wives. But now, unable to tolerate the approach of death to the cowards, he became most angry. Hiding his feelings, he spoke, "Oh friends, look, the uncontrollable snake called Kalia lives in uh, the uncontrollable snake called Kalia lives in this lake by stopping the motion of the water, by snacking another." Hiding his feelings, he spoke, "Oh friends, look, The uncontrollable snake called Kalya lives in this lake by stopping water. By hissing, the snake makes the whole place poisonous. All places are afflicted by this burning poison. Afflicted by the poison, gave sorrow to the moving and non-moving beings on the shores of the river. But he remained silent out of shyness in front of the snake's wives. But now unable to tolerate each approach of default. Thank you. Oh, hiding his feelings, he spoke, "Oh friends, look, the uncontrollable snake called Kalya lives in this lake. He's stopping the motion of his wife." But now unable to tolerate the approach of death to the cowards and cows, he became most angry. Hiding his feelings, he spoke, "Oh friends, look, the uncontrollable snake called Kalya lives in this lake by stopping the motion of the water. By hissing, the snake makes the whole place poisonous. All places are afflicted by this burning poison. Afflicted by the poison, afflicted by the poison, hiding his feelings, he spoke, "Oh friends, look, the uncontrollable snake called Kalya lives in this lake by stopping the motion of the water. By hissing, the snake makes the whole place poisonous. All places are afflicted by its burning poison. Afflicted by the poison, birds in the sky fall down. See this with your eyes." For Krishna, he swam around in the water of the serpent lake, making 400 hastas. Krishna was the result of Nanda's pious acts. For Krishna, who had unlimited power, such an action was not remarkable, for Krishna had reached the Pauganda age. His body was not very strong, but near the snake. His body shone like 10,000 suns. His arms mocked the servant by thrashing the water with sound. The snake's powerful hoods became powerless as a spider's web, and his poisonous fangs became like piles of cotton. But when Krishna, wearing a garland of Kadamba trees, jumped from the Kadamba tree, his friends when considering all this, he then suddenly laughed, getting some comfort. Considering all this, he hates laughing. Considering all this, he then suddenly laughed, getting some comfort. The inhabitants began to move again. Thinking that the path was long, their eyes widened. They saw Krishna's footprints on the path. When the path became wet with their tears, they held the hand of Balarama. Taking his assistance, they continued moving. Though they tried to move quickly, they unfortunately moved slowly. Only with great difficulty they proceeded to the lake. I cannot fathom their internal state at that time. Seeing Krishna dancing on Kaliya's hoods, Nanda, the cowards and women became completely disturbed in their heart. And Nanda, the cowards and women became completely disturbed in their heart. Their limbs dried up and became discolored. One would think that their internal fires were leaving their bodies. One would think that the internal fires were leaving their bodies. They experienced pain on seeing the humans had lost all intelligence and were behaving like animals, and animals were weeping like humans. As eyes dries up ghee, the hearts of the people full of affection dried up because of fright. But as soon as the sun melts ghee, they melted because of the heat generated by what they saw. Full of affection, they started to enter the poisonous lake like a wave. But Balarama, though a child, assumed great strength and quickly stopped them like a dam. Full of affection, they started to enter the poisonous lake like a wave. But Balarama, though a child, assumed great strength and quickly stopped them like a dam. Oh, he said, "Oh Father, King of Raja, oh Queen of Raja, do I not have affection for Krishna? Mother Rohini, I know the truth about Krishna. Touching the effulgence of your lotus feet, I swear that not a hair on his head will be harmed." This is according to Garga's words. In this way, Balarama held them, raising his excellent arms. Withdrawing from the poisonous lake, they perceived that their lives were even more seriously in danger, since they felt themselves in the midst of the poison and seeing Krishna there. When Krishna was in Kaliya's lake, the people of Gokula began weeping. Heaven wept Rudati like an Heaven wept Rudati like an echo in reply, thus showing the derivation of the word Ro, the sky. Heaven wept Rudati like an echo in reply, thus showing the derivation of the word Ro, the sky. The coward women, grasping each other's necks, wept loudly. But this weeping made the mothers remember how Krishna was saved from Putana, and this gave them comfort. Pained by their situation and seeing the attempt to enter the lake, Krishna angrily extended his limbs and limbs of the snake. Quickly, the snake became limp and Krishna climbed upon him. Cutting the limbs of the snake. Quickly, the snake became limp and Krishna climbed upon him. When Krishna climbed on the snake, though Kaliya resisted, all became overjoyed. When Krishna climbed on the snake, though Kaliya resisted, all became overjoyed. The Devatas showered flowers while shouting, "Victory, victory, victory," and playing instrumental music. The inhabitants of Raja, its children, youths, and elders made soft sounds in joy, which surpassed the sounds of the Devatas. Made soft sounds in joy, which surpassed the sounds of the Devatas. The evil snake's heart was agitated by the effulgence of Krishna. Longing to curb Krishna's pride, he stood at a distance, eager to accomplish his desire. His anger grew, revealing his naturally cruel nature. With great pride, he prepared to attack Krishna, hissing and glancing. He produced virulent poison. His body became as huge as a mountain. Bewildered, the snake flicked its forked tongue at the edge of its lips, as if calling out, "I am a snake with two tongues. I am flicking my tongue." Desiring to be punished, he displayed himself everywhere. Desiring to be punished, he displayed himself everywhere. Like an expert snake charmer, Krishna began moving about with pride in order to seal the snake's mouth. The snake came close to him with his heads. The snake came close to him with his heads. Sometimes, like a snake, it would move far or would come close with his heads. The snake came close to him with his heads. Sometimes, like a snake, it would move far or would come close. With its tongue moving crookedly, it moved about everywhere and became tired. Though Krishna was eager to show his expertise at fighting this long snake, on seeing an opportunity, he caught the main neck of the snake with force and brought it under control. Having brought all the limbs of the snake under control, Krishna had the strong desire to dance on the dance floor of the snake's broad foreheads, encrusted with jewels. Thus, with beautiful effulgence in eyes, to the accompaniment of music and song, he began dancing on the snake with the assistance of others whose eyes were filled with tears. The flood of beauty from Raja, mixed with joy and astonishment, reached the heavens, and the sounds from Swarga reached Raja on earth. One could not detect which was the original sound and which was the echo. He then began to dance very quickly to the accompaniment of Shiva's drum, which gives the opportunity for pride in order to punish Kaliya. Jumping higher and higher, he crushed the serpents' heads. With anger and great pleasure, he danced excellently on Kaliya's head. Brahma and Shiva sprinkled flowers and shouted, "Victory, victory!" while their hair stood on end. In joy, they perspired. All the devatas began singing joyfully to accompany Krishna's dancing. Nanda and being saw Krishna enter the mouth of Kaliya and then come out, offering Artrika with his life, and saw him dance with the stone nails upon the heads of the snake. The joy in their eyes and body spread throughout the universe. It was astonishing that Krishna danced on Kaliya's heads and in the sky. Whenever Kaliya raised one of his heads in anger, Krishna beat it down with his foot to the rhythm of the music. Kaliya began to vomit blood and ooze poison from his eyes. His head with jewels askew was injured by the imprints of Krishna's feet. When his body became limp, he could no longer serve as the dance floor for Krishna's feet. Kaliya's wife saw him in this condition. First, the snake was broken and then torn apart. He no longer had a proper form and could not move at all. He then surrendered to Narayana in order to stop the intense pain caused by Krishna. Kaliya's wives never had great affection for Kaliya, since they knew he was opposed to the Lord. But seeing him with a sprout of devotion, they approached Krishna because of that. Placing their young daughters, sons, and eggs in front of Krishna, they offered him respects. Greatly desiring to appease his devotees, Krishna smiled. Repeatedly rolling on the ground, the wives pleaded with him in pitiful voices. The meaning of the words is summarized here. This proud snake has no intelligence. We follow you, omniscient and full of mercy. If you have affection for us, then do as you wish. This proud snake has no intelligence. We follow you, omniscient and full of mercy. If you have affection for us, then do as you wish. If you have affection for us, then do as you wish. Those whose evil nature cannot be removed by your association deserve to be punished. See, this poisonous lake is in front of us has immediately lost its poison due to contact with you. You show only mercy. What appears to be punishment inflicted by you, our foolish misconception. If the serpent deserves punishment and you are determined to give punishment by any means, then why have you offered your lotus feet for giving him punishment? The snake must have performed many pious acts and as a result has received the touch of your lotus feet. We understand that you have touched him with your lotus feet in order to purify his body of sinful acts. We understand that you have touched him with your lotus feet in order to purify his body of sinful acts. Krishna, who showed great mercy by placing his feet on Kaliya's heads, which deserve to be crushed, and by marking them with his footprints, is our shelter. When the kings of snakes became humble, Krishna accepted him with compassion, gave up his anger, and gave fame to Yashoda. When Krishna alighted from the hoods of Kaliya, who had beaten by his feet, the snake, without displaying excessive prowess, remained with bowed head. Krishna for some moments glanced at him with compassion and then purified Kaliya's heart like the water in the Yamuna, abounding with lotuses. When the snake had all his faults removed, he gave up his anger and begged with folded hands. I'm sinful, but that's my nature. Whatever good or bad qualities I have, my success depends on you alone. What other accomplishments do I have than having your feet placed on my head? Therefore, please tell me where I can go. Krishna gave him the following order. O king of the snakes, fortunately, you have given up your bad qualities. Your birth as a snake is not beneficial for the world. Natrasteyam tvaya sarpa samudram yahimachiram tvam gyati apatya daradhyo gonibir bujyate nadi. O serpent, you may not remain here any longer. Go back to the ocean immediately, accompanied by your retinue of children, wives, other relatives, and friends. Let this river be enjoyed by the cows and humans. SB 10:16-60. Dvipam ramanakam hitva hrudam yetam upashrita yad bhayat suparnashtvam nadyan matpada lanchitam. Out of fear of Garuda, you left Ramanaka island and came to take shelter of this lake. But because you are now marked with my footprints, Garuda will no longer try to eat you. SB 10:16-64. To authorities, an R at the end of sentence becomes visargaha. It is my opinion that a fool, Repa, should leave the village because of contact with my foot. This is your punishment. Because your head is marked with my footprint, you will be known to have all good qualities in the future in Ramanaka. Having fallen down like a rod, the king of the snakes offered his head to the lotus hand of the Lord, which was like nectar. The king of the snakes offered his head to the lotus hand of the Lord, which was like nectar, and became free of all faults when his body was saturated with nectar. Shukadeva has described Kaliya's later actions as follows. Tam pujayamasa muda naga patnyascha sadaram divyambarasran manibhi parardayar api bhushanai divya gandhanu lepaischa mahatyo palamalaya pujayitva jagannatham prasadya garuda dvajam tataha prito bhyanujgyata parikramyabhivandyatam. Sakalatra suhrit putro dvipam abdher jagamaha tadaiva samrita yamuna nirvisha bhavat. Kaliya joined his wives in worshipping him with great joy and reverence. Kaliya worshipped the Lord of the universe by offering him fine garments along with necklaces, jewels, and other valuable ornaments, wonderful scents and ointments, and a large garland of lotus flowers. Having thus pleased the Lord, whose flag is marked with the emblem of Garuda, Kalia felt satisfied. Receiving the Lord's permission to leave, Kalia circumambulated him and offered him obeisances. Then, taking his wives, friends, and children, he went to his island in the sea. The very moment Kalia left, the Yamuna was immediately restored to her original condition, free from poison. SB 10, 16, 65 to 68. Krishnam Hridad Vinishkrantam Divyasragandha Vasasam Mahamani Ganakirnam Jambu Nada Parishkritam Upalabhyoti Ta Sarve Labda Prana Ivasava. Krishna rose up out of the lake wearing divine garlands, fragrance, and garments covered with many fine jewels and decorated with gold. When the cowards saw him, they all stood up immediately, just like an unconscious person's senses coming back to life. SB 10, 17, 13 to 14. What is great and priceless is called Divya. But in this case, what shines on Krishna's limbs is called Divya. What is great and priceless is called Divya. But in this case, what shines on Krishna's limbs is called Divya. The eternal items were present in the lake in the Yamuna. The eternal items were present in the lake in the Yamuna. As the full moon rests among the constellations over the eastern mountain, the Kaustubha jewel among all eternal things shines eternally on the body of Krishna. The astonishing nature of the Lord called, he who has Garuda on his flag is not found in Dwaraka. By logic, one can conclude that Garuda, having great powers like a Devata, travels in the sky. If Garuda traveled in any other way, it would give trouble to other entities. How could that be approved by Krishna? When the Yamuna was touched by his feet, it became like nectar. Krishna's ornaments and clothing did not become contaminated by Kalia. The snakes suddenly saw Krishna. Therefore, it is suitable to say that Krishna rose up out of the lake wearing divine garlands, fragrances, and garments covered with many fine jewels. To the lake wearing divine garlands, fragrances, and garments covered with many fine jewels. The emotions on seeing Krishna are described. The people made great noise, came quickly, developed slack limbs, quivered, spoke in broken words, and wept, but they could not be completely satisfied with seeing him. In their happiness on attaining Krishna, there was also grief. Seeing him, but they could not be completely satisfied with seeing him. In their happiness on attaining Krishna, there was also grief. The inhabitants experienced complete bliss on hearing that Krishna was coming, but by this their bodies and minds were not able to function at all. On seeing the symptoms of his friends, such as being stunned in all joints, hair standing on end, resembling boils, eyes flowing with tears, choked up voice, shivering such that the teeth made shattering sounds and were about to fall out, and perspiration which cleaved the body, Krishna became aggrieved. First, the black, wide eyes with tears on seeing him rise from the water. Then their bodies began quivering as if they were dancing. When he embraced them, waves of joy appeared, such that they could not identify themselves to him. Krishna respected them all and made his mother, father, and friends happy. Because of this, they became stunned and experienced the greatest bliss. If the sages were not telling the truth, who would believe them? The cows and other animals excited by Krishna's arrival acted just like the inhabitants of Braja. The trees also had dried up previously from grief. Now in great joy, their leaves and flowers began to blossom. When all the friends met with Krishna, conqueror of demons, certainly unprecedentedly love spread everywhere. When Yashoda, overflowing with prema, arrived, what can be said? All people simply melted. All the friends met with Krishna, conqueror of demons. Certainly unprecedentedly love spread everywhere. When Yashoda, overflowing with prema, arrived, what can be said? When Yashoda, overflowing with prema, arrived, what can be said? All people simply melted. Thinking of his strength, Balarama was happy, but he had dried up internally because of the suffering of the people of Braja. Though that had happened, concealing his grief by his inscrutable nature, he smiled. Krishna smiled and embraced him for a long time. Krishna smiled and embraced him for a long time. The people began to consider, if one attains Krishna in a dream, then grief concerning him also occurs in a dream. If one attains Krishna in a dream, then grief concerning him also occurs. If one attains Krishna in a dream, then grief concerning him also occurs in a dream. But if we attain Krishna in the waking state, we have attained our goal and there's no obstacle to our happiness. In order that all could see him, they placed him in the center like a lost treasure regained. The sun amidst the planets, giving joy to the eyes of the Devatas, moving in the sky without shame. A multitude of men and women gathered, and Brahmanas, knowing the Vedas, a multitude of men and women gathered, and Brahmanas, knowing the Vedas, invoked future auspiciousness and gave Krishna blessings. They then praised Nanda and instilled confidence in everyone. O Nanda, we repeatedly describe your son who has killed many enemies. O Nanda, we repeatedly describe your son who has killed many enemies. You desire to destroy all inauspiciousness. He has come quickly because of your pious acts. Having experienced both lamentation and joy, the people were unaware of the passing of time. Having experienced both lamentation and joy, the people were unaware of the passing of time. Night had arrived. Having experienced both lamentation and joy, the people were unaware of the passing of time. Night had arrived, having become thin because of affliction from extreme fatigue, because of Krishna who's beyond hunger and thirst, that place till the morning. Fearing enemies, Yashoda kept her son on her lap all night, completely absorbed in seeing Krishna's face with happiness. She remembered his activities with astonishment. Morning then arrived. Though they milked the cows, they did not give Krishna the milk, though he was hungry for fear that the whole place was contaminated with poison. Though he was hungry for fear that the whole place was contaminated with poison. During the night, Krishna performed another praiseworthy activity. When Kalya was banished from the Yamuna, Kamsa heard the news from his spies. Overcome with anxiety, he became motionless. He began thinking, oh, all my warriors have been killed by that boy. An evil spirit was a face of fire, laughing, burns my assistants. Going throughout the universe, it dances. Though Kaliya was powerful, his strength was suddenly destroyed. I consider his banishment like his death, since we are now without any idea about what to do. We must do something so that we are not injured and Krishna is destroyed. Kamsa heard from other messengers that Krishna was on the bank of Yamuna with the inhabitants of Vraja. Hearing this, he ordered his nearby followers to go there, light a blazing fire everywhere, and then disappear. Following his order, they went there and lit a fire. When the forest fire began to burn the inhabitants, they quickly fled. They then began to think some evil persons will catch us. With Balarama, they went to Krishna and reported what happened. We are not afraid of death or a river of hardship, but we are afraid of not seeing your moon-like face. Krishna then extinguished the fire just by blowing, but sages fancy that he swallowed the fire. When the fire was created by scheming Kamsa, the fire was destroyed and they were saved from the calamity. When dawn came, they returned to Raja joy Krishna under his influence. On the way, Balarama entered the Yamuna and pulled Krishna in as well. Playing with their friends, they brought the cows into the water. After much fun, he allowed them to return home. The return home is described as the sun and other planets enter the sky. The inhabitants entered Braja, putting Krishna in the center and dancing without shame in great joy to the accompaniment of music, singing, dancing, chanting the Vedas, monsoon showers of flowers from earth and heaven, shouts of victory, victory, and a joyous clamor. Monsoon showers of flowers from earth and heaven, shouts of victory, victory, and a joyous clamor. They let the cows roam about. Though nothing had been protected by the influence of the elevated persons, not even water containers were perceived as different from what they were before. Nothing could be rejected as inferior. Though the huge quantity of food cooked in ghee was old, it did not rot. Since only the food cooked the previous celebration was available, everyone took that food in the house, and putting Krishna and Balaram in front without worries, they ate all the food. Having spoken, Madhukanta then concluded, that child born to you, having subdued Kaliya, then subdued Kamsa and others. In this way, the inhabitants of Raja crossed the two rivers of danger by the boat of Krishna. After experiencing the actions giving bliss, to conclude the story and shower sweet nectar of praise, the two reciters folded their hands and remained standing. After a long time, the inhabitants of Raja After a long time, the inhabitants of Raja, serving Krishna by caressing and protecting him, returned to their duties along with Nanda. Hare Krishna. We would like to stop here. Thank you so much.